Today, we are going to be talking about the 10 best towns to move to on Long Island in 2026. Not the richest, not the 10 most expensive towns, but the 10 towns I would actually tell a client to buy in right now if they were relocating here today. I'm Eric Berman, an associate broker with Compass Greater New York, and we've helped families relocate to Long Island from all over the country and help Long Islanders find the next right move within it. Counting down from 10 to 1, every town gets an honest read. What it actually costs, what the commute looks like, what it feels like to live there, and what nobody tells you about the downside. I'll also flag the one town where the median jumped almost 30% year over year, and the one South Shore village that's cheaper than most people think. And number one on the best towns to move to on Long Island list, it's a town most relocation buyers overlook. So let's go. Quick market context before we start. Long Island is a genuinely competitive real estate market right now. Homes sell in a median of about 40 days at 102% of the original list price. 4 months of inventory across the region. If you're moving here thinking you're going to negotiate the seller down, have a backup plan, have a backup house, and have a backup appointment with your therapist because you're going to need to talk through some of those delusions. Nassau County's median single family sale price is around $880,000 as of this recording. Suffolk is at a record $750,000. Both counties are up year over year. Both are still climbing. Both have less inventory than they do buyers. That's the market you're walking into. Now, let's talk about where you should walk into it. Number 10 on the best towns to move to Long Island list is Long Beach. Long Beach is the outlier on this list. It's a beach city on a barrier island on the south shore of Nassau County. It's 2.2 miles of boardwalk. It's a walkable downtown along Park Avenue. There's restaurants and bars just super close to the sand. And it's only a 52-minute train ride to Penn Station. For a specific kind of buyer, Long Beach is the answer to a specific question. Can I live at the beach and still commute to Manhattan? Yes. This is where you do it. The median sales price for a home in Long Beach right now is about $825,000, which is real Nassau money for what is essentially a beach lifestyle. Ocean views from your kitchen, if you're lucky, which is exactly what you want in July and exactly what you're paying flood insurance for every other month. That's the honest downside. With Long Beach, it sits in the FEMA zone AE and VE flood zones. Insurance isn't a fixed number. It's priced to your specific structure. Foundation type, elevation, first floor height. Two identical houses on the same block can carry very different monthly bills. You can't estimate the flood premium from the listing price. You have to get the actual quote on the actual house. Otherwise, the number you thought you were going to be paying goes up by hundreds of dollars per month. So who then does Long Beach actually work for, right? So it's for somebody who genuinely uses the beach, 100 days out of the year. Someone who wants a walkable, social, warmer weather lifestyle. Someone who's buying a properly elevated post-Sandy house with current elevation certificate in hand. For that buyer, Long Beach earns its place on this list. For any other buyer, the math gets complicated fast. Number 9 on the best towns to move to on Long Island list is Patchogue. Patchogue is the Suffolk County success story of the last 15 years. South Shore, about 90 minutes from Penn Station, great South Bay frontage, and the kind of block after block walkability that's actually rare in Suffolk. Median single-family sales price in Patchogue is around $535,000, which, for what you're getting, is genuinely underpriced in my opinion. Patchogue used to have a reputation. It doesn't anymore. At some point in the last 10 years, Patchogue got itself a real main street, a brewers scene, and a summer concert scene on the water. Now, the biggest complaint about Patchogue is that everybody figured out about Patchogue. Welcome to Long Island. That's how it works here. For a buyer looking in Suffolk County, Patchogue punches above its price tag. A main street you can walk to, waterfront access, nightlife at close to half the Nassau median price. The honest downside on Patchogue, the commute is 90 minutes to Penn Station on a good day. That's not a daily commute for most people. And Patchogue, like most Suffolk, and Patchogue, like most of Suffolk, is on cesspools and septic systems, which matters more than most buyers realize because Suffolk County no longer allows a failed cesspool to be replaced with another cesspool. If the system on your house fails, you're looking at a real 5-figure capital cost to replace it. That never shows up in the listing price. So who does Patchogue work for? The hybrid worker who only goes into Manhattan 1 or 2 days a week? The buyer who wants nightlife and walkability without paying Nassau prices for it? The Fire Island regular who wants a home base on the same coast? For that buyer, Patchogue is one of the best value towns on Long Island. So let's move along to number 8 on the best towns to move to on Long Island list. So we're going to talk about Farmingdale. Farmingdale is one of the cleanest downtown plus commute combinations on Suffolk County. Real commuter rail service to Penn Station, it's about 60 minutes on the peak train, and a main street that has genuinely earned its reputation. Restaurants, bars, cafes, a theater, all within walking distance of the Long Island Railroad Station. Median single-family sale price in Farmingdale is around $650,000, which is in the middle of the Suffolk range for what you're getting. Farmingdale had a serious downtown revival over the last decade, and it worked. Bethpage State Park is right there. Adelphi and Farmingdale State College are both in the area. For a buyer who wants a walkable Main Street and a real commuter train right at the door, Farmingdale delivers on both. But the honest downside, Farmingdale sits on a school district that carries one of the higher effective tax rates in the area. And the assessment roll here lags the current market, which means a buyer walking in at today's price should look at the projected tax bill on the specific house, not the townwide median. The actual bill could be significantly higher than what the listing suggests. Pull the tax bill on any specific Farmingdale house before you commit. Who does Farmingdale work for? The commuter who wants Main Street at the front door and a train station at the back. The buyer who values downtown life more than they mind the tax bill. For that buyer, Farmingdale earns its spot. Number 7 on the best towns to move to on Long Island list. Northport and East Northport. We're going to couple them together here. So Northport is one of the best harbor villages on Long Island, and East Northport is the arbitrage right next to it. Northport Village sits on the main street, runs down to the water. Boats, restaurants, a historic theater, old brick storefronts. It's genuinely charming. And in real estate, charm, it has a price. Here's what that price actually is. The median single family in Northport Village is around $1.2 million. The median single family in East Northport is around $706,000. Same school district, same tax rate, same Long Island Railroad service. The gap between the two is nearly $500,000. You're paying $500,000 for the harbor view and the Main Street address. Same schools your kid attends, same taxes you pay, same train you take. That's the arbitrage nobody wants to say out loud. But the honest downside on both, well, it's that the commute runs 65 to 75 minutes to Penn Station. Some direct trains exist. Most trips involve a transfer along the way, usually at Jamaica, which is fine for a hybrid worker, not great for, the person who's going into work 5 days a week. All right, so who do Northport and East Northport work for? The buyer who wants the harbor village character without the Nassau price tag. The hybrid worker whose office is a couple of days a week. The buyer who values the school district and can drive the harbor on the weekend. For that buyer, this is one of the best towns on Long Island that people don't have on their search list. All right, so number 6 on the best towns list is Massapequa Park. Massapequa Park is the underrated South Shore Nassau pick. It's a small incorporated village inside Massapequa, which means its own village government, its own zoning, and its own community feel, distinct from the broader Massapequa area. The LIRR runs right through it, around 54 to 58 minutes to Penn Station on peak train. Median single family sale price in Massapequa Park is around $835,000, which is meaningfully more accessible than Western Nassau South Shore towns like Rockville Centre and Baldwin. Massapequa Park has a main street along Park Boulevard. Restaurants, shops, the kind of small downtown where you actually recognize the people that you see. But the honest downside, Massapequa Park is on the South Shore. South of Merrick Road, flood zone exposure gets real. North of Merrick Road, you're generally fine. If you're shopping here, pay close attention to which side of Merrick Road the house sits on, and check the FEMA map on the specific address before you write the offer. So who does Massapequa Park work for? The buyer who wants its own village government and a real South Shore Nassau community feel at a lower price than the Western South Shore villages. The commuter who wants a clean, under an hour ride. The buyer who values a village that answers to its residents. For that buyer, Massapequa Park is quietly one of the best value plays in Nassau County. So if you're finding this useful, I put together a checklist that goes deeper. 12 things to have settled before you write an offer on Long Island. It's free, links in the description. Go ahead and check it out. And don't forget to hit subscribe. All right, coming in at number 5 is Babylon Village. Babylon Village is the most complete South Shore village in Suffolk County. Around 56 to, let's call it 64 minutes to Penn Station on the peak train. A downtown that has kept its character and a genuine waterfront access on the Great South Bay. The median single-family sales price in the Babylon area is around $690,000, which is genuinely accessible for what you get here. Babylon Village is walkable in a way most Long Island towns are not. Main Street gives you real restaurants and real shops, and the water's right there. For a buyer looking for the most complete South Shore village at a Suffolk price, Babylon Village is one of the strongest picks on the entire island. But there's an honest downside here. Babylon is popular for a reason, which means it's competitive. Inventory moves really quickly, and flood exposure on the bayfront blocks, it's real. So verify the flood zone on any specific house before you commit. So who does Babylon Village work for? The commuter who wants a one-seat, under an hour ride. The buyer who wants waterfront and walkability in the same village. The buyer who wants Suffolk pricing with a real village life. For that buyer, Babylon Village is one of the best all-around towns on Long Island. And real quick, if you think I left anything out on here, there's some great towns I didn't mention, go ahead and throw them into the comments. All right, now let's talk about number 4. Huntington. Huntington Village has the best downtown in Suffolk County. Restaurants, bars, a theater, live music, a harbor, all within 4 walkable blocks. But there's also the Route 110 traffic situation with 3 distinct phases. Sitting, not moving, and regretting making a reservation for dinner entirely because you're never going to get there. Then the median single family in Huntington Station is around $670. That's a $330,000 difference. They're basically looking like it's the same place, but read the address carefully. The Route 110 problem is also the reason Huntington works for the right buyer, because Route 110 is where roughly 30% of all of Suffolk County jobs are located. If you work anywhere along 110, Melville, the Farmingdale industrial areas, the office parks along the way, Huntington is a quality of life upgrade that nobody talks about. You live in one of the best downtowns on the island. You drive to work in 20 minutes. Your weekend is walking distance from your front door. The commute to Manhattan is real though. Peak trains run around an hour, sometimes closer to an hour and 9 minutes, not the 56 minutes some listings quote. And the LIRR station is physically in Huntington Station. Village residents drive to it and fight for parking. The honest downside, Huntington meets 2 different towns, right? You've got Huntington Village and Huntington Station. They price differently and they feel different. And most of Suffolk, Huntington included, is on cesspools and septic. The same eventual capital costs we covered in Patchogue. So who does Huntington work? The buyer whose job is on 110 or elsewhere on Long Island. The hybrid worker who values the real downtown over the fastest commute. The buyer who genuinely uses restaurants, live music, and harbor life. For that buyer, Huntington is one of the best of the top 5 towns on Long Island. All right, so let's talk about number 3 on the list. And this one is one of my personal favorites, Port Washington. Port Washington is the commuter's answer. It has its own LIRR branch, direct service to both Penn Station and to the Grand Central Station. No Jamaica transfer, and it takes about, let me say that again, because most buyers don't fully appreciate what this means. Port Washington is one of a very small number of Long Island towns where you can ride direct to both Manhattan terminals. Grand Central Madison service opened in 2023, and Port Washington got direct access with no transfers. If your office is on the east side, Grand Central, no transfer. If your office is on the west side, Penn Station, no transfer. That is a genuinely rare commute story on Long Island. The median single-family sales price in Port Washington is around $1.35 million, which is a real Nassau premium, and it's paying for a real premium commute. The town itself is on a peninsula on the North Shore. Manhasset Bay on one side, the Long Island Sound on the tip. Sands Point sits at the end of the peninsula, one of the wealthiest villages on the island. Port Washington has a walkable main street, restaurants along the water, a working harbor, a community that has been here for a long time and knows it. The honest downside, Port Washington is expensive, and the peninsula geography that keeps it exclusive, it means there's one way in, one way out. Traffic during peak hours on Port Washington Boulevard can be significant. So who does Port Washington work for? The daily Manhattan commuter who values direct access to both terminals with no transfer, the buyer who wants Main Street life and waterfront access, the buyer who can afford the premium and knows why they're paying for it. For that buyer, Port Washington is one of the best commuter towns on the island. All right, so let's talk about number 2 on the best towns on Long Island list, and that is Garden City. Garden City is the premium benchmark that every relocation buyer searches at some point. It's a fully planned village, one of the earliest planned suburbs in the entire country. Straight streets, consistent architecture, enormous street trees, a downtown along 7th Street with real restaurants, a Long Island Railroad station right in the middle of the village. The median single-family sales price in Garden City is about $1.4 million, which is among the highest medians of any village on this list. The Garden City feel is unlike anywhere else on Long Island. There's a sense of order and a community here that most Nassau villages don't have. The village runs its own services, recreation, library, parks. Everything is walkable. Everything is well maintained. For a buyer looking at premium Nassau, Garden City is the benchmark. The honest downside here, and it's a real one, Garden City sits on the Hempstead branch on the Long Island Railroad, which does not run direct to Penn Station. You transfer at Jamaica. The total commute is roughly 42 to 56 minutes, including the transfer. For a buyer who commutes daily to Manhattan, that transfer matters. For a hybrid worker or a buyer whose job is on Long Island, it's a non-issue. So who does Garden City work for? The buyer who values planned village community and walkability. The buyer who works on Long Island or in Jamaica where the commute complaint, it just disappears. The buyer who wants premium Nassau and knows exactly what they're paying for. For that buyer, Garden City is one of the top villages on the entire island. And can you believe it? We have already gotten to number 1. So who do you think it is? Well, I'll just tell you. It is Rockville Centre. Rockville Centre is the strongest all-around move on Long Island, and I'll defend that. And here's why. Rockville Centre has the best commute to walkability ratio on the entire island. 33 minutes to Penn Station on the peak train, a 1-seat ride, no transfer, trains run all day and night, and when you get off the train, you walk into a village. The median single-family price in Rockville Centre is around $929,000, which is real Nassau money for one of the most usable villages on the island. A real main street along Park Avenue and Sunrise Highway. Restaurants, bars, coffee shops, a movie theater, nightlife that runs past 10 p.m. on a weeknight, which is genuinely rare on Long Island. Strong schools, a village government that has been extremely intentional about downtown investment for the past 20 years. Multiple parks, walkable side streets that pour you directly into that downtown. Rockville Centre has a real problem. Everybody wants to live here. Inventory disappears in weeks. Bidding wars are the norm, not the exception. Sellers, they don't negotiate. They pick their favorite buyer. If you find your dream home in Rockville Centre and you decide to sleep on it, somebody else is going to be sleeping in that bedroom next week. The honest downside, Rockville Centre, it's not cheap and the competition is real. You're bringing your strongest offer or you're not winning the house. So who does Rockville Centre work for? The Manhattan commuter who wants the fastest, cleanest one-seat ride there is. The buyer who wants a real walkable village with real nightlife. The buyer who wants a genuine community feel. The buyer who values quality of life over exclusivity, which is most buyers, which is why Rockville Centre is #1 on the best towns to move to on Long Island list. A quick note, if you're watching this from outside of Long Island or Queens, we can still help you. If you need to sell your property wherever you are before you can move to Long Island, just click the link in the description and set up a chat with me, and I will put you in contact with agents that we have fully vetted around the country. All right, so there you have it. You have the 10 best towns to move to on Long Island list in 2026. So at 10, we had Long Beach. Number 9 was Patchogue. Number 8, Farmingdale. Number 7, a combination of both Northport and East Northport. At number 6, Massapequa Park. Number 5, Babylon Village. 4, Huntington. 3, Port Washington. 2, Garden City, and number 1, you can't forget it, it was Rockville Centre. Every one of these 10 towns works for a specific kind of buyer. None of them works for every buyer. The best town on Long Island for you is the one where your commute fits your job and the price fits your budget. And the daily life fits how you actually want to spend a Tuesday night. Pick on fit, not on hype. If you're thinking about a move to Long Island, click the link in the description of this video. Schedule a call directly on my calendar. No pressure, just a real conversation about which town actually fits. And grab the offer strategy checklist, which is the first link in the description. And in the comments, tell me which town I got wrong, or tell me which town belongs on the list that I left off. I'm Eric Berman with the Eric Berman team at Compass, and I'll see you on the next one.